is the new Peugeot 3008. It goes for a more upmarket direction, a bit of sporty appeal as well with the coupe style of roofline. Even though it is more upmarket, I've noticed that it does come with cheap Gitty tyres this time. What happened to the French Michelin tyres that Peugeot always fit? It does look very interesting though, lots of intricate details, the headlights and the tail lights. Like check out the sculpting going on there. It all looks very distinctive, very unique, and it stands out on the road. Two variants are available in Australia. This is the top spec GT Premium. Prices start from just under $65,000, which is quite expensive compared with the previous model. And this is less powerful than the previous model. So Peugeot used to offer the previous 3008 with a plug-in hybrid offering a combined 222 kilowatts. It actually went really well. This is downsized to a 1.2 litre turbo petrol 3-cylinder engine paired with a hybrid system, 15.6 kilowatt battery, electric motor. Look, I'm all for 3-cylinder engines. I think they offer a lot of character and they're just fun to drive because of the sound and the sort of torque delivery. They've got pretty good or surprising level of mid-range grunt, and you just know they're just 1.2 3-cylinder or whatever it is, 1 litre 3-cylinder in other models. And it kind of just plays on your mind a little bit and you think it's more fun than it actually is because it's such a small engine. But this is a top spec GT variant and it's pretty expensive, $65,000. So you might expect more performance. Well, I would expect more performance. Combined, you've got just 100 kilowatts. It's not very quick and it's not very spirited to drive, but it does come with a dual clutch gearbox, which is unique for a hybrid. Usually they have boring CVTs. So it is good that they've fit a proper geared transmission and you can play around with the manual mode and all that sort of thing. I like this deep ocean green sort of color. It's got a lot of depth and it kind of flips in the sun as well. Look at it in the direct sunlight, it's more of a light green, but then lower down in the darker shadow sections, it's almost like a dark blue. And then the GT variant's got black trimmings, like black roof, black side mirrors, and then black elements in the front grille. It's got some fake intakes on the side. I'm not a fan of that sort of stuff, but it does all tie in quite well and it looks all carved out and very edgy. 19-inch alloy wheels, they're also black with a machined face there. They do look pretty detailed, but they don't look that aggressive and they don't suit a GT variant or trim level in my opinion. But anyway, the best thing about this is the interior, in my opinion anyway. Like look at that, awesome sculpting and detail there. This section of the dash is sort of backlit, it's blue in this case. You've got this little slot underneath, so at night time it's kind of like a shadow coming through. It just looks really awesome. It looks like a piece of artwork. Inside it's very comfortable. I've got decent headroom and legroom, although this center console is pretty chunky. It kind of feels like that section should be over this side, but I guess you have storage and everything on there for the passenger, and then the driver mode volume control is on the driver's side. You do have the gear selector up here, which takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm always reaching down here or I flick the drive mode toggle, but you know, after some extended use, you're going to get used to that. I don't like Peugeot, and I think Citroën was the same. You've got to hold down the start button for a long time, so I'll just start it up for you. Up on the dash, you've got Peugeot's latest touchscreen setup. It is integrated with the instrument cluster, so it's all seamless. There's no bar between the middle. I'm not a huge fan of this menu layout. Like you've got shortcuts, you kind of hit that and a few menus pop out. But yeah, it's just confusing to find some elements. For example, this comes with massage seats. And the only way I can figure out how to sort of turn them on or off or configure them is by pushing this button down on the side here, and that prompts a menu to pop up. And then you've got, yeah, your menu, your massage, different settings and so on. It's a nice massage though. You do have this sort of pneumatic sound as the sort of balls or whatever they are poke out. But yeah, it's really comfortable to drive along, and it's unique to this class. You don't really get massage seats even for this price range. But yeah, some of the menu functionality here, you can swap across and you've got different areas here. You've got settings there, and then you can go through that. There's no real back button. You can pop that down. You've got a shortcut menu there. Like, how do I go back kind of thing? Got to go back home maybe, flick it across, and I can go to the application drawer, and that's got different settings again. Yeah, it just seems a little bit confusing, or not a little bit, quite confusing. I reckon they could do a better job with that. Like, house it all into one section, then you go, what do you want to do? Vehicle, bang, settings, okay, seat, you know, climate, whatever, all in the same area. Whereas that seems like it's scattered all over the place, and sometimes I feel like there's hidden menus you can only access when you click certain buttons, like the massage thing. I could be wrong though, there might be an easier way, or even voice command and all that sort of thing, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the menu functionality and menu flow. I think they could have done better than that. You do have this main menu screen down here as well. So you've got the home button there and up here, and then you've got climate, so you can quickly jump to the climate. And here you've got seat options, but there's no thing for the massage. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, then you've got sat-nav and Android Auto in this case. Oh, I've got an Android phone. You do have some climate buttons down here, but there's no aircon button. You've got your air recirculation, which is good, and you can turn it off straight away, which is good. And then your drive mode, volume, and handbrake. Plenty of storage. You've got this big bucket here, which actually closes up. Does feel a little bit cheap, plasticky kind of thing, but yeah, definitely lots of storage, connection options, and a big center console box as well. And in the back, you've got a decent amount of room for this class. Almost flat floor, so the middle seat passenger doesn't have to sit on a kind of step. I love this fabric, or textured fabric trim that's all around the place. It just sort of brightens it up a little bit. And yeah, decent comfort. I've got plenty of leg room. In my seating position, I'm only 170 centimeters, and I've got more than enough headroom for me anyway. The seat is very comfortable. The cushioning is quite soft. Got a center armrest with cup holders, and you've actually got heated seats on the outer passengers as well, including twin climate vents. Got a charging port down there as well. Sitting in the middle is going to be a bit of a problem because that console is very close to the seat. Like, you'd only just fit my foot actually, and I've got small feet, doesn't actually fit in between the seat and the center console. So yeah, if you're going to buy this for a family car, it's probably a little bit too small. If you're just carrying 4 passengers at most of the time, then it's going to be okay. And up at the back here, we've got an electric tailgate, which makes sense considering the price tag. You've got a reasonable sized boot. This is not the biggest boot in this class. 12-volt socket on the side, and some underfloor storage as well. All right, we'll take it for a drive now. I'm not going to go on a winding road or a spirited road or anything like that, because I don't think that's what this vehicle is about. It's more about comfort and modern design, and then we'll do the performance testing later on as well. This is where this vehicle shines, on country roads like this. Lots of bumps, uneven surfaces, potholes and so on, because the suspension is really absorbent. There seems like there's a lot of wheel travel available, so it can just soak up big bumps while remaining very comfortable and still quite stable. This is not a flimsy, bouncy thing. It's actually very stable as well. You might notice the massive touchscreen there, and Peugeot is persisting with its tiny steering wheel. Kind of looks like it's upside down with, you know, smaller gap there than at the bottom. If you can see that. I'm not a fan of this steering wheel setup. The idea is that you lower the steering wheel, then you've got the speed and all your information right in front of you, like it's almost in your line of sight when you're looking where you're going. But to me, that's actually, you know, it's just above the bonnet line, so it's actually pushing into my view a little bit. I mean, I get what they're trying to do, but yeah, I'd rather just have a normal steering wheel size and then just have the speedo down below and maybe head-up display onto the windscreen. But you know, they're trying to be different, I guess, and standing out from the crowd. In terms of the handling, yeah, even though it is sort of comfort focused, or it feels like it is, it actually handles really well. Like, I pushed it pretty hard down a winding road, and even on the slalom test on the private road, it hangs on really well, even with those cheaper tires. So there's a good foundation there. It's just got the softer setup of suspension tuning to make it more comfortable. But yeah, if you do want to go for a nice spirited drive, it's confidence inspiring. There's no surprises. You'll turn in and it'll go where you want it to go. It'll catch the bumps, and yeah, there's good communication coming back through the steering wheel as well. It can be a driver's car, but obviously the engine performance lets it down a little bit in that regard. In terms of fuel economy, I'm averaging 8.8 litres per 100. at the moment, which is not that great. I think the official average is 4.9, which is also not that impressive considering this engine only produces 100 kilowatts, or this package produces 100 kilowatts. You know, you can get a RAV4 hybrid, which is much more powerful, 160 kilowatts, and it chews officially 4.8, so a little bit less than this. But mainly in the real world, you tend to just push this a little bit more, or I do, and I'm just driving casually. I'm not, as I said, I've done a bit of spirited driving, but that's it. And it's showing 8.8, so it's not that impressive for the performance return. I think a powertrain like this would be great in a smaller package, a lighter weight package, like a Peugeot 208 hatchback or something like that, because you would get decent economy, but you still get respectable performance because it is so light. This is quite light for its class, but even so, you tend to push the throttle a bit more to keep up with traffic, especially at highway speeds and getting up to speed. I'll just slow down and show you the kick down for you. Full throttle. Yeah, it's got that nice 3-cylinder thrum to it, but not much push in the back. It takes a little bit to get up to speed, as you saw. If you're going up a hill, or if you've got a full carload or something like that, it's going to be even worse. And I think that's what injures the fuel economy. If it had a bigger engine, just to sort of keep the momentum going, you wouldn't have to push the pedal. You could just sort of roll along a bit more, and you'd trim off the economy, the consumption a bit, I think. All right, we'll head out now to the private road and do the performance testing and see what it goes like.